Greetings roleplayers and welcome back to the corner. We are the Bard and our many souls demand this Warlock variation, for we are many and you are but one.
Test your might. Test your might.
So there's no denying that Ermac is a godlike character, but even if gaming isn't your thing and you're just here for the role-playing, you are still getting a top-notch Warlock build. I am really excited for this because not only does it involve two of my favourite things, role-playing and gaming, but it is also a top quality build with loads of functionality and plenty of utility. I want to play this build. If I ever get the chance, I want to play this Warlock. It would be so much fun. The core of this build is Warlock level 12 and the Great Old One Patron is perfect. In fact, it's absolutely too perfect. All the abilities are tailored to the character's design and there's almost something in every part of the expanded spell list that you're going to take advantage of. Awaken Mind, a staple ability for any kind of telepath, being able to speak to any creature you want within 30 feet. Just remember, it doesn't work both ways, so if they want to talk back to you, they're going to have to do it with their own telepathic abilities or just do it the old-fashioned way. Nonetheless, a useful ability for giving instructions to the rest of your companions. In fact, two high-level Great Old One Warlocks could easily have a conversation amongst themselves telepathically without anyone ever finding out what was going on. Entropic Ward is a solid defense which is useful against a variety of different attacks, whether they be melee or ranged, and if it does work you can always get advantage on your next attack roll, so it's just a nice thing to have. Thought Shield fits the character perfectly, blanket immunity to having your thoughts read telepathically or otherwise, resistance to psychic damage and reflected psychic damage, which is just gravy on top. Create Thrall isn't actually necessary for the build, but it is a strong ability that gives you a whole other person's abilities to take advantage of. Moving on, and Pact of the Tome is the pact we're going to go with when we eventually hit level 3, and it is a very good pact for all those additional cantrips. Vicious Mockery is one you definitely want to get hold of. Its psychic based damage and the disadvantage on attack rolls is always useful. Obviously though, you're going to be using mostly force effects from your Eldritch Blast, but just having a secondary damage type is always useful. Thaumaturgy is an interesting cantrip that complements Prestidigitation quite well, and Guidance is a great out of combat cantrip for helping your companions with their ability checks. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what cantrips you pick for your Pact of the Tome class feature. However, it is often a good idea to pick those rare cantrips that only appear in one class's spell list. Moving quickly on to Eldritch Invocations, and Book of Ancient Secrets is going to be one of your primary invocations, because it just gives you access to all of those wonderful rituals which will be of so much value, especially if you are the party's primary arcane spellcaster. Since Eldritch Blast is your primary attacking spell, you want to make sure it's dealing as much damage as possible, so get Agonizing Blast and make sure you use Repelling Blast to control the battlefield as much as you can. Devil's Sight is a very strong ability because being able to see in both mundane and magical darkness comes in very handy. Slow is one of those amazing battlefield controlling spells that everyone wants to have. Even though Mire the Mind is only going to give you this once per day, it's still a very strong option. If on the other hand you're not really into your slow effects and you'd rather prefer a bit more chaos in your life, consider going with Dreadful Word just to get that confusion effect. Being able to cast Levitate on yourself with Ascendant Step at will is an amazing ability. Melee only combatants are an absolute cakewalk when you have this, because you just levitate up and you pepper them with your Eldritch Blast constantly until they either come to the realization that they have to run away or they're just stupid enough to stand there and get killed. Out of combat, this spell is usually pretty good for getting around places you normally wouldn't be able to go. And if you do happen to get into a situation where you end up falling off of something, Levitate comes with a built-in personal featherfall. If this spell ends for any reason, you can just float down to the bottom, jump off anything you like, cast this, dispel it, and just float gently to where you want to go. Moving on to spells, and there is no limit on the amount of rituals that you can have in your Book of Shadows. But just do be aware that it's not worth taking a spell as one of your spells known if you can get it as a ritual instead. Unseen Servant is a great example of this. It's one of those spells that fits the character perfectly, but it's not worth taking as a spell because you're not going to be needing it immediately. It's worth setting up as a ritual, however. So get it for a ritual and save your spells known for other things. Cantrips now, and Eldritch Blast is your go-to damaging spell. Mage Hand is also very nice because it's a telekinetic effect that you can use just as a simple cantrip to really add some theme to the character. These are the main two cantrips that you'll probably use. After that you can pick pretty much whatever you want. Friends is a quick information getter if you're not worried about them turning hostile against you afterwards. If that's a bit of a problem, then you can always consider just going for a nice cantrip like Mending or Dancing Lights. But you get a lot of this out of Prestidigitation as well, and it's always a useful cantrip just for general purpose stuff. Hex never stops being an amazing curse to put on a target. Never be afraid to continually use the Eldritch Blast and Hex combination on anything. Dissonant Whispers does very good damage even at low level, but as you gain in progression and start going up in levels, it becomes less about the damage and more about the fact that it wastes a creature's reaction. So Dissonant Whispers is actually a very good multi-use spell. Whatever spell you pick up as your second level is not going to matter too much because you're only going to swap it out at third level anyway. So just pick one that you think either fits your playstyle or fits the theme. Now that we're level 3, not only do we get a new second level spell, but we also get to swap out one of our old ones. Now is the time to do this and grab either Hold Person or Misty Step. No matter what your companion's attitude is towards you, if they're a melee character and you cast Hold Person on the enemy, they are going to love you for giving them all that advantage and critical hits against them. Misty Step is a great get out of jail free card, not just for getting out of a dangerous melee, but literally for getting out of jail. Because no matter where you want to go, if you can see the outside, you can get to the outside. Before any of these, however, you have to get Detect Thoughts. This is an amazing spell from the Great Old One, because Detect Thoughts not only gives you answers, it also gives you awareness. It doesn't matter if a creature is hiding, if it's invisible, or if it's polymorphed into something else. If it's not shielding its thoughts, you can be aware of it. If this spell only lasted a little bit longer, it would probably be one of the best spells in second level. Despite only lasting 1 minute though, you can still get a lot of ground covered with the 30-foot radius. Even though you do have to use your action to search for the thoughts of the creature, you don't need that action because you're not actually in any kind of combat situation. When you find the thing, then you can drop the spell and then you can start your assault. If you have reason to suspect you might be walking into an ambush, don't hesitate to cast Detect Thoughts. It can literally be a lifesaver. Third level has some excellent spell choices in it, but not very many that fit the theme. So if you want to keep it as close as you can to the Ermac character, Fly is probably your best choice. Fly is incredible for battlefield mobility, and also just for general utility as well. At the very least, spells like Fly and Levitate should be giving you advantage, just because you're going to have the high ground over someone. Sending makes the cut because if the theory is that knowledge is power, then being able to do something with that knowledge within one standard action should give you pretty much free domain. There's a lot to be said for getting anything you want up to 25 words sent anywhere in the world in under 6 seconds and still get a reply as well. Even with all your mobility, misty escapes and pushbacks, you could still end up getting caught in a melee encounter. The chances are not too likely, but if it does happen, having something like Vampiric Touch to fall back on is very, very handy. The unfortunate thing is, for the Warlock, especially the Ermac variation, is that there are no decent spells in 4th level, so one of your 4th level picks is going to end up being Vampiric Touch. I mean, there are a couple of choices in 4th level, such as Dimension Door or Dominate Beast, but unfortunately, you can only take one other creature with you with Dimension Door, and it usually has to be willing as well. So unless your party consists of you and just one other person, it's really not going to be of that much use. The same can be said for Dominate Beast. It's a situational spell that isn't going to come up often enough for you to make full use of it. Hold Monster does exactly the same thing as Hold Person, but not having that humanoid restriction is an amazing boost to the spell. It might actually seem like now that we have Hold Monster we should have swapped out Hold Person, but don't forget that as you've increased in levels, the amount of creatures you can target with Hold Person increases from 1 to 4. Because it's one additional creature for every spell slot above 2nd, and you can get up to 5th level slots as a Warlock. Dominate Person is unfortunately not the wonderful spell that it used to be due to the concentration and duration issues that it has, but it is still a really good spell that a clever player can make very good use of. It is possible by using Awakened Mind and Dominate Person together that you can give commands to your enthralled subject without giving yourself away as the source of the domination. Finally, we got onto one of our most important spells in the entire build. In fact, it's one of the most important spells in the game. It is such a good one. Telekinesis can lift, it can push, it can grapple, it can shove. It affects both creatures and objects. It can manipulate levels. It can do pretty much anything you need it to. Telekinesis can easily be used to disarm a creature, or stop a monster in flight, or even just to hold something suspended in the air. Telekinesis works well with environmental hazards, so you can use it to hold a creature underwater, you could push it into a vat of acid, you could push it down a spike trap, you could drop a creature off a cliff, you could hold it in a volcano of boiling lava. You could begin a combat by lifting a creature up into the air with telekinesis 30 feet. Then on your next round, when you're actually ready to deal with that creature, you could throw your Eldritch Blast at it, you knock it back 30 feet, that's 60 feet up in the air. Not only will it take your Eldritch Blast damage, but then it has to deal with 66 damage from falling as well. If there are really heavy objects lying around the battlefield or wherever you're doing any of your combat, that is an even better use of telekinesis. A heavy object dropped on a creature is going to do tons of damage. There's an interesting section in the Dungeon Master's Guide about improvising damage. If you think you're going to end up using telekinesis as one of your core damaging spells, then it might benefit you ahead of time to sort out with your DM just how much damage a falling object does. One of the examples they give in the Dungeon Master's Guide that by level 11, a dangerous object should be dealing something in the range of 10d10 damage. Dangerous damage values pose a significant threat to weaker characters and can potentially kill a character of the level shown if the character is missing many hit points. Telekinesis can lift up to 1,000 pounds of weight. Now with that dropping on you, I would consider that pretty damn dangerous, if not outright deadly. So if you're looking for a decent Mystic Arcana, Mass Suggestion fits the theme quite nicely. Also if you're looking for feats, Alert can be one of your best friends. The faster you can react to a situation, the more easy it is to control. Also being pretty much immune to surprise is also a very strong ability, especially if you're not running your Detect Thoughts at the time. Warcaster is also one of the better choices to take. If you're taking damage, at least you'll have advantage on Constitution rolls when it comes to keeping your concentration, and being able to cast a spell is usually of much greater value to you than an attack of opportunity. This version of a Warlock is very strong at attacking and it has some excellent utility, although it is lacking somewhat in defences, but it does rely very heavily on speed and control. The idea being is that you put something down faster than it can get to you. So with some respectable offense, some really good utility spells, and a very interesting character theme, there's no reason why you can't have so much fun playing as this Warlock variation. So I've had so much fun with these character builds, and I'm really hoping you guys have too. So if you like it, be sure to leave a like, because it really does help to promote the videos around YouTube. If you're new to the channel, why not consider subscribing? And if you like what's going on here, leave a comment. Tell me if you've had similar ideas of your own, or if you've had some good experiences playing a similar kind of character. And with all that being said, I will see you guys next time at the gaming table.